right, welcome back. It's time now to talk about some snails, the mollusks. Mollusks are the predominant phylum in the marine environment. Well, that's one thing they are. And they have some key features. They have a ventral muscular foot for locomotion and anchoring. And that foot, you can see that foot right in here, back here. And that foot is extendable and retractable. And then they have a visceral mass that contains internal organs. And here you see the visceral mass pointing to that hole inside there. They also have a dorsal mantle, which is a flap of tissue over the visceral mass. And the mantle may secrete a hard calcium carbonate shell. And you see here, you see the mantle right here. That's that green thing going from front to back, and you see the shell potentially covering it. A mantle cavity forms a multi-purpose space housing gills, the anus, organs that sense foods in water, and an outlet for gametes. And you can see the cavity, you can see the mantle cavity right in here. You can see how it has the gills in it right in this specimen. Many also have a scraping structure at the mouth called a radula. And you can see the radula right here, right by the mouth. We have 7 classes of mollusks. We have the Aplacophora, and that means bearing no plates. Those are worm-like, mostly living in deep ocean bottoms. And they lack a shell, but have spicules on their skin. And then we got the Monoplacophora. They are bearing one plate. They have a single shell that encloses their body. They thought extinct, but over 24 living species have been found. And then we have the Polyplacophora. They're bearing many plates. And we know them as chidens, and there are 8 plate bearing armor like shells. We know those. And their broad ventral foot attaches to rock, and the mantle extends and forms a girdle. And you can see that girdle right here. You can see that round thing that goes beyond those armor plates right here. And they breathe with ctenidia, and those are gills ventrally. You can see them right here. You see those gills right in here. Bivalvia means 2 shells. And they include clams, oysters, mussels, scallops, and geoducks. And they are a pair of shells that are hinged at the dorsal side. And the body is flattened on the sides. And we find those mostly in marine and freshwater habitats. And you see here the hinge in the back and these 2 valves right in here. The halves, the 2 halves. Water enters through siphons and flows over the gills, the ctenidia, and then that then there exchanges the gases and filters also food out. And you can see those ctenidia right in here, kind of scary looking things a little bit. And you see the water flow as it flows in here. And you see the siphon, the in siphon, and then we got one that the water expels it. And we call here, this is the egestive siphon. And then we have a pair of branched tubular organs, and those are nephridia, and they filter waste products from the internal body fluids, the coelom, and excrete it. And they function similar to the kidneys, but evolutionary, they're not related. And then some secrete a calcareous nacre, and we call it the mother of pearl, around the foreign particle that enters the mantle cavity. And those are our pearls that we can then wear. They look very pretty. And then we got the gastropods. And the gastropods mean stomach foot. And they include the snails, slugs, the conchs, the sea hares, and the sea butterflies. They include shell-bearing species and some that have reduced shells, as we can see here. That's a reduced shell ones. And the shell, if they have it, you can see here, the shell is asymmetrical looking. The visceral mass of shelled species have a twisted foot. The shell and body mass rotate 180 degrees relative to the head and the foot. And then what this does, it helps with crawling and being able to retract the head for protection. And you can see that right in here. As you see here, it's turning it slowly. You see the opening here, or the indentation right in here, and turns it slowly 180 degrees. So it twists it. Most of them have a head with tentacles supporting the eyes, and they also have a radula that helps scraping the food particles from the substrate, like a lot of them have. And the mantle cavity encloses to the ctenidia and have a pair of nephridia in them. Cephalopods literally means head, foot, animal. Cephalad is the head and the poda is the foot. And those are our octopuses and the squids, the cuttlefish, and the nautilus. They come both in shelled and in reduced shell groups. And as you can see up here, they display some very vivid coloration and have the ability to rapidly adjust their colors, mimicking the background, so they can camouflage. And predators in this class can have beak-like jaws, and you can see that a little bit right in here. You see that beak-like jaw in here sticking out. It's kind of scary looking, actually. Cephalopods have a developed nervous system with complex eyes, and they have a closed circulatory system in which blood is always contained in vessels. And so now we start having arteries, veins, and capillaries. They have 3 hearts, 2 that pump blood through the tenedia, the gills, for oxygenation. And then they have 1 systemic heart that delivers that oxygenated blood to the body. And you can see up here, you got a giant cuttlefish, and then over here, you got a reef squid. The foot of the cephalopods is lobed and developed into tentacles for locomotion. Suckers are present on the tentacles of the squid and the octopus. They move quick via jet propulsion when they contract the mantle cavity and forcefully eject the steam of water. So that's pretty cool. And then the nautilus live inside a spiral multi-chambered shell that's filled with gas or water, and that way they can regulate buoyancy. Now that's really fascinating. And then we got the scaphopods, and that means boat fish. Scaph means boat. We also know them as tusk shells or tooth shells. And they are a marine organism that opens at both ends and lies buried in the sand with the front opening exposed to the water. They have radula and foot modified into tentacles, each with a bulbous ends that can catch and manipulate prey. I know you can't see that on these up here, but that's all the stuff they have. And they live really, really deep, up to 13,000 feet deep in the ocean. And next now we get us to the annelids, and annelus means small ring. These are our worms, including our common earthworm, polychaetes worms as well, and leeches. We find them in marine, terrestrial, and freshwater habitats. And all of them, as a common thing, they need humidity to survive. And we see that when we see our regular worms drying out, unfortunately, they can't survive that way in the dry climate. Each segment, they come in segments, and each of the segments is a repetition of internal and some external feature. And we call that metamerism. And then they also have some modified features individually to accommodate the function of the greater good. And overall structure, they have a head, they have a body, and they have a tail. And look at that. You can see a head right here. It's kind of crazy looking, isn't it? All right. The skin is protected by a thin cuticle that doesn't need to be molted for growth because it's thin and flexible enough. Especially polychaete worms have flesh appendages on the side, and they're called paradonia. And you can see paradonias, it's a little hard to see, but you can see those green things that come out of here. Those are those. And they use those for locomotion. And is both crawling and swimming, depending on the environment. They also have bristle-like extensions called chetae or setae, and they're made of hard chitin that projects, and that helps with movement by providing grip. And kind of like nail things looking thing. See this, like here, this kind of structure. You see one right in here. Those are the ones. In marine annelids, parapodia are highly vascularized and help in respiration, which is the gas exchange. Beneath the cuticle are two layers of muscles to help with movement when they alternately contract. They help with crawling, burrowing, and swimming. A true coelom is present with organs suspended in the coelomic cavity. A complete digestive system is also present with specialized organs. And you can see that here. You got the mouth, you got the pharynx, and then you got the esophagus bringing it to the crop. And the crop is kind of like our stomach. And then you got the gizzard. And the gizzard is a special organ that physically is a muscular organ that grinds up the food. And then from there, you get into the intestine. So that's a full formed complete digestive system. And then each segments are also separated by a membrane. They also have an enclosed circulatory system with muscular pumping hearts in the anterior segments. And you can see that right here. You see the pumping the hearts. You see those hearts right in here. Dorsal and ventral blood vessels run the length of the body, delivering each section with blood. Gas exchange happens across the moist body surface. That's how they take up the gases and expel the gases as well. Excretion is done by primitive kidneys, and they call them metanephridia, and they're made of ciliated funnels that are present in each segment, and then convoluted tubules and a pore that opens to the exterior, expelling that liquid waste. And let's see where we have that right in here. You see that right in here, the metanephridium, and you see the pore sort of sticking out here, and here's the convoluted tubules. Here are the convoluted tubules. They have a well-developed nervous system with two ventral nerve cords and a nerve ring that surrounds the pharynx. And so you can see that right in here. You can see how here are the nerves, and how here we have a ganglion and that ring forming right there. So that's sort of our rudimentary brain. Polychaetes, which means many chetae, are also known as bristleworms. And you can see them up there. You see the extensions coming out that looks like bristles. Cladodates contain a ring structure in the skin, the clitellum, and that secretes mucus to bind mating individuals and form a protective cocoon for the eggs. And you can see that right here. You can see two roundworms mating, and you see here's the clitellum, each of them. You see that there. Looks like a band-aid around the worm a little bit. Its three subgroups include the Oligochaeta, which include the earthworm, the Hirudinidae, which are the leeches, and you can see one of those leeches right here, and then the Branchioptilidae, which are forming an obligate symbionts with mainly with the crayfish. So they form a symbiosis with the crayfish. All right, and that's the annelids. Wonderful. Now let's move forward. We're slowly moving to the chordae, and then slowly moving to the vertebrates, and then slowly moving to us. Thank you for paying attention.